You got to be able to learn how to relax, let that energy go. It's very difficult to find time to chill because fight week it should be pretty chill. I know there's a lot of media that you have to do. There's a lot of events. There's a lot of appearances you have to make. But at the end of the day, it's still a fight.
Welcome into Boxing Scene's top stories here on ProBox TV. Download the ProBox TV app. Never fall behind with your boxing news. Of course, the big news this week, CANELO versus BERLANGA, September 14th, Mexican Independence Day in Las Vegas. Now, the festivities of a big fight, it's part of the reason we love the sport, but who is ready for them and who isn't? Jimmy Smith in studio. Joining us remotely, the champs, Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri. Gentlemen, I have to ask you, as the festivities roll on, we're talking about the fighters making their entrances, getting interviews. The old heads, right? CANELO, he's used to this. Danny Garcia, Erislandy Lara, they've been in big fights before. But Macumbi, for example, and of course, Edgar Berlanga aren't that used to it. Chris, what is the effect, the kind of stars in your eyes, if you've never been through this before, does it have an effect?
No, it absolutely has an effect. I remember the grand arrivals in Las Vegas when I was fighting Manny Pacquiao, and I mean thousands of people as I came through the door at the I think we were at the Venetian Hotel where they had it, and yeah, I mean like rows of people. I'd never experienced anything like that. Before that, after that, anything. I mean, it's a whole different experience, and that was one of the things when we spoke to Edgar. We got a chance to interview him. I asked him, like, this isn't just a fight. This is an experience. There's a lot going on into it. And the only thing that is going to feel normal to him is actually once the bell rings and he starts to throw some hands, because everything else leading up to it, he's never experienced. And there's no way to prepare for it either. It's not like you can, visualization works in a lot of ways, but it's not the same as when you're actually in there and experiencing yourself. We're seeing on the video right now, all the people. I remember this walk going through thousands of people on each side, cameras and interviews. And when you're young, it's actually it feels good, of course, but also like you're absorbing that energy, and you can take that into you, inside as you're going through fight week. And I think it's really important to keep you up. But at the same time, you got to be able to learn how to relax, let that energy go. It's very difficult to find time to chill because fight week it should be pretty chill. I know there's a lot of media that you have to do. There's a lot of events. There's a lot of appearances you have to make. But at the end of the day, it's still a fight. It's still a fight week. And even though you've done that 20, 25, 30 times before that event, the spectacle leading up to it is completely different. And, it's up to every young fighter, their first time to figure that out. It's happening for Berlanga, fighting, Canelo Alvarez is a walking legend at this point. But he's had some big fights as well. He's fought main events in Madison Square Garden. He's had a lot of energy and lights around him, in terms of the people that he rubs elbows with and the way that he's developed his career is pretty star-studded if you really look at it. But it's different when you're fighting a guy like Canelo.
When you, Paulie, if you're in the corner of one of these guys in a situation like this, like Berlanga, especially Macumbi, you talk about Berlanga's had some big fights. Macumbi kind of in the spotlight for the first time. What's your advice to them with something like this? Do you have them enjoy the moment? Do you try to get them past it and ignore it? What's your thought on it?
Yeah, I mean, you can try to mentally prepare as best you can, but the environment around you is still going to have some sort of effect. I mean, first of all, I'll tell you what, champ, you made a point there, the only familiar place is the ring. Not even the ring is familiar, because I'll tell you why. When your opponent even misses a punch, the crowd is going bananas because you're fighting such a popular fighter. Just him throwing a punch makes the crowd go bananas. So you're dealing with emotions that even come to you during a fight that haven't happened before. When it comes to Macumbi, at least here he's not in the main event, okay? But he's still fighting a big name star. In this particular situation, it's going to be a very big pro Canelo crowd. They'll be paying attention during this fight because it is a part of the main undercard attraction. But at least it won't be as loud. I think Berlanga's going to have a lot more to deal with when in terms of outside interference as far as the atmosphere and whatnot, the environment than Macumbi is. Caleb Plant's a known entity. If you can get past the fact that Caleb Plant is what he is, which is an ex-world champion, one of the fighters at the top of his game, and one of the best fighters in the world, you may be able to handle this emotionally because the crowd is not going to be so vested into this fight as they are in the main event. And as for Macumbi, overcome. But, you know, emotionally, he's vested very, very much into this fight because it's his first big step up. You can take the positives out of that and tell yourself, you know, this is the moment you've been waiting for, one of the moments you were waiting for anyway, you know, to get to this level, to fight at this level, and to be able to take on guys that you've been watching on TV, that you've been, you know, watching in big fights on fight nights with your friends, and now they're across the ring from you. You know, these are moments that you kind of tell yourself, like, wow, you know, I can't believe I'm across the ring. But at the same time, you also confirm your arrival, and you'll confirm it even more if you're able to get that win. So emotionally, you got to stay charged up as far as being motivated, but at the same time, not too charged up to where you'll lose focus. And there are different ways of dealing with that. But I think it's more difficult on this fight night for Berlanga because he's in the main event, and you got a crowd that is there fully for Canelo.
Chris, how do you prevent that mental or physical fatigue? Because, you know, as you know, you're a fitness guy, you understand it completely. The chemicals that make us panic, that make us fight or flight, the adrenaline, we're only supposed to be exposed to that in times of extreme stress for very short amounts of time. In a show like this, you got the walk-in, you have 2 national anthems, you have all the pageantry with it, but you can't get that hype during that. You got to save it for the fight. In your first big one, how hard is that to do?
Listen, the anxiety spikes are there, and how you manage that is what separates the men from the boys, so to speak. And the best fighters in the world are able to make that happen. And it comes down to, one, it's your makeup, right? Your mental makeup in terms of your spirit and how you're able to handle it. But also, I think your team matters a lot. And I think that Berlanga, who, you know, obviously with in terms of the team that's around him, he's got very experienced guys when it comes to fight night. He's got experienced guys when it comes to training. They haven't been at this level either, but, you know, he's got good management around him. Keith Connolly is his manager. He was my manager. He's been in a ton of big fights. He handled Danny Jacobs' career, another guy who's fought Canelo. So he kind of has an idea of what this is going to look like. I'm sure that Keith is going to be in his ear and making sure that they're not doing too much work in fight week because there's so many demands. And being able to be like, yeah, no, we don't need to do that one right now, and having that kind of power to do that, I think is really important. And that just comes from having a team around you who understands that, listen, you don't have to do every single media event. Yes, you're contracted, you have to do a lot of them, but you can kind of gauge the aura of your fighter. Some guys grow during these events, and some guys it saps them. You gotta really keep an eye on your charge and see how they're reacting to the moment. Edgar strikes me as the kind of guy he likes the attention. It's gonna help him. You know, Champ, you mentioned, you know, kind of reaffirming that feeling. Listen, the imposter syndrome is real. You might look around and be like, man, should I really be here right now? Like, I don't really know.
But you got to fight those feelings off.
You got to fight those feelings off. It's the negative self-talk that you get in your head that really separates how good you can truly be. Because in the best in the world, man, they got ice in their veins. They deal with it. And a lot of them do it early on. And the true greats are able to acknowledge that, stay cool, stay calm, stay collected, go out there and perform. But really, it's one of those things you're never going to know until you know.
How much of an advantage, and Paul, you talk about this a lot, not just tactically, but emotionally. You know, you talk about Arislami Lari's amateur career. The guy had faced everybody, had been in every kind of environment, big fights as an amateur. How much does that help you in your professional career when you've had that national Olympic exposure? You're a Cuban fighter. They are well known in their home country. You have a bit of stardom. How much does that help when you get to the big fights as a pro?
I think that helps a lot. But big fights as a pro, the atmosphere is very different than big fights as an amateur. You know, I fought internationally as an amateur. The crowd is not that vociferous and that emotionally charged, tied into one side or one particular fighter like it is on these kind of cards. With Lara, I mean, he's been not just overall in the greatest levels of the amateurs, but he's been in a Canelo fight. He's already had the Canelo experience in a main event of this magnitude. So him fighting on this card, it was just par for the course. He's been there, done that. He's experienced all of it. So for Lara, it's more so about fighting Father Time than anything else, in my opinion. You know, I don't think emotionally there's any challenge to him that he's going to see something he's not dealt with as far as in the build-up to the fight. And same thing with Garcia. Garcia hasn't been to the highest levels of the amateurs like Lara, but he was a very high-level, national-level amateur in the U.S. as well, fought in the Olympic trials, and is already a former world champion. So in terms of what these guys are going to deal with, there's not a lot of emotional stuff or outside the ring interference kind of stuff that they're not already going to have dealt with in their career and not going to know how to deal with it. You know, with them, it's different. I want to go back to a point Chris made. Cham, you made a good point about their team as well. The outside, the team that gets you there is very, very important, because if you're getting there for the first time in your career, it's so important for them to take care of the little things that they know, because they've got the experience, that might be distractions, or they know might interfere with some of your mental concentration, because it's your first time at this level. Having a team that understands that is very, very important. And I think when it comes to Team Berlanga, it seems like he's got a solid team there. I'm not at all familiar with McCumbie's team as much as I am with Berlanga's team, but as far as Berlanga, he's in the main event. I think you need that team with a solid manager, with a solid trainer that will make you understand. Okay, let's handle it this way. Let's pull him away from this, and let's have a talk about this if something is bothering. You need that, and then you need to take care of the political stuff that the commission might have to deal with that you don't want your fighter to know. Maybe there's a gloving issue, or maybe there's an issue about the way how much adrenaline your cut man can have in the corner or whatnot. You don't want your fighter to be involved in all that kind of hubbub going into the fight night. You want him, because there's already enough pressure if it's his first time in this. And I'll give you an example. Professionally, my first big fight, I pretty much had the three ring circus, Ringling Brothers, on my side. There was nobody that knew how to do anything. It was my first time being there. I can remember fight day of my Miguel Cotto fight, and my brother calls up my manager and says, "Bro, the ring is small. The ring is really small." Like, he was at the Garden and I was across the street. He's like, "The ring is super small. What are we doing?" And the manager calls up my best friend who's with me in my hotel room, and he's like, "Buddy, we can't do this. I mean, his kid's brother's going to the ring and he's complaining about fight night, this and that." I was already focused. I'm like, I'll handle it. Looking back, the ring was small. I mean, I sometimes I question whether that ring was even legal. All right. Also, when I got in the ring, it was very spongy. It was meant to take away my legs moving around. Again, it's not an excuse. Cotto was a great fighter, but you're just dealing with these kind of little advantages that better teams know how to give their fighter. So it's up to your team to try to combat that and make things even. So, you're basically dealing with things that, if you have a circus around you, if you have the circus working with you on your team, it's going to become even more difficult, because you already got a world-class fighter in front of you. Now, he's got a team that knows how to give him advantages, it's going to be even more difficult. So having that team put you in the right situation to be able to be successful helps also combat those nerves.
But that team actually starts with your lawyer at the contract.
Yeah.
I remember I had the exact same situation when I fought Provannikov. I remember at the weigh-in in the Barclays Center, I could see straight down to the ring, and because they had the ring set up prior to the fight night, and at the weigh-in, I'm looking down, I'm like, that ring looks small. And my coach is like, no, it's good. It's just like the one we train with. Okay, cool. Then Dan Raphael posts on Twitter the day of the fight, "This is a exceptionally small ring for a championship fight." And I was like, my coach lied to me, but he did it on purpose. He wanted me to feel comfortable, going into the fight. But I didn't even know you could negotiate the size of a ring. And that's where I talk about having a lawyer looking over your contract.
That's
part
the
of it.
thing. In Vegas, places like Vegas, it's standard. Some commissions are standard, and some commissions you can negotiate it. And some places, like for example, I can remember Sven Otke when he fought in Germany. He was a super middleweight world champion in the 90s, former Olympian. He was a guy who had no knockouts, but he moved around the ring. Yeah. His ring was like a mile wide. You went to fight him, you couldn't find it. He was like, whoa. He was like a road runner. He was outboxing everybody. He actually retired undefeated. So, it depends. But in certain commissions, it can be negotiated. New York was one of them. And as we both found out, if you look at that fight with the Cotto fight, if you look at the outside photographers, there's something you'll notice in my fight with Miguel Cotto. The outside, they're laying all on the ring apron. The ropes are so pulled in, their entire body's on the ring apron laying there. Usually you can only get your head on the ropes. So it's one of those things where you need a solid team if you're Team Berlanga, especially because you're dealing with a Team CANELO who is of the highest level. This is what they do. They just live this level
savvy.
Of fight.
They're experienced at this kind of thing, right? And that's the thing.
Yeah, and in Vegas, go ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
Leonard Hearns, right? Famously, Leonard ran away with all the negotiating, got the ring he wanted, the ropes he wanted, and obviously we know how Hagler, and we know how that worked out for Hagler. It did not work out the way he wanted.
I mean, look at the Leonard Duran rematch. The ring is huge. You know, the Leonard Duran rematch, too. The ring was huge. But again, you have to have a team that knows how to combat that. Sometimes you got to give a little bit because there's more money on the other side, but you got to at least have a team that's willing to fight. A team that's at least knowledgeable to know if they can fight. That's where it starts.
Well, the fight starts outside the ring and continues in the ring. That's right. More boxing news around, of course, you know, Canelo versus Berlanga this Saturday. Don't miss it.
He's the pride of Guadalajara, the Mexican maestro, the unified super middleweight champion of the world, Canelo Alvarez. His challenger, undefeated knockout artist and pride of Puerto Rico, Edgar Berlanga. It's prime time.
Canelo versus Berlanga, plus Lara versus Garcia. Saturday, September 14th, live on PBC pay-per-view on Prime Video.
Wednesday Night Fights.
Dynamite action on Wednesday Night Fights every other Wednesday on your boxing channel.
Coming up on your next Wednesday Night Fights, September 11th. Rising Guatemalan star Lester Martinez puts his O on the line against fellow undefeated warrior Joe Showtime James. Live from the ProBox Event Center in Plant City. Get your tickets at ProBoxTV.com or take your chances at the door. Wednesday Night Fights.
Don't miss evenly matched, high-action fights. Wednesday Night Fights on ProBox TV. Scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play.